But we're here to see the creatures migrating through, and the students are taking notes on those things. They're writing about it. They're drawing the landscape. They're painting the landscape. And we're just trying to get them to experience a part of Cape Cod that you wouldn't normally see. I mean, I grew up in Falmouth, but I've never been to Penikese, and unless you get a chance to come out here, you wouldn't necessarily be able to see, this kind of Cape Cod. The FEF has been key in so many of the projects that we've done over the years, in getting the kids outdoors and getting them to look at nature and not at the internet for their sources. Mm-hmm. And that's an important way to learn things and to remember things. And one of the main reasons why we're here on Penikese is because of Louis Agassiz and his whole philosophy of study nature and not books, because it's important to actually physically look at something to reflect on it, as opposed to reading about it or hearing about it or seeing it in a picture that you found on Google. It's just that it's not meaningful. It doesn't have any soul.
Well, welcome to Penikese Island. My name's Dave Vieira. I'm state representative from the 3rd Barnstable District. I live in Falmouth. And about a year ago, Jane Baker said, I've never been out to Penikese. And some of you may have participated in her program last year with the 300 committee and going out to natural lands, conservation lands in Falmouth. And she said, wouldn't it be great if we could actually take the students out and do something around migratory birds out on Penikese? And so began the journey of working with the state and with the Falmouth Education Foundation. She wrote a grant and they're funding this trip and this project, but they're only, under the regulations, allowed a certain number of people on this island at one time. And so we needed to work with the folks that are standing behind me here. George Peterson. George is the commissioner of the Department of Fish and Game for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which has jurisdiction of this wildlife sanctuary. And so we had to work with the commissioner and deputy commissioner, Mary Lee King, who's with us also on the island today. Where'd Mary Lee go? Oh, she's over there by the dock. To be able to get some exemptions to allow this large group to come out here. And so we're excited to be out here. It's actually the commissioner and the deputy commissioner's first time on the island. And so they're learning, as you all are, about the history of this island. And they brought with them some folks that work within the department. And Carolyn has been working out on the island for a number of years, I think since the 90s.
Since the late 1990s, yep.
And she knows about the work that's going on with the migratory birds, and so I'd like Carolyn to kind of give us a briefing. But Commissioner, if you'd like to say a few words before we learn about the work.
Well, just welcome to Penikese Island. It is a sanctuary, and we have a lot of people that are doing great work out here to keep track of the terns, the regular terns and the roseate terns. And from what I'm understanding, a few years ago, you couldn't even walk on this island because the brush was too bad. So we've been reclaiming the island to be able to provide better habitat for all the wildlife, and especially those threatened species that we're concerned with. So Carolyn's been sort of heading up this project, and I'll let her go into more detail. Carolyn?
Thanks, George. So how many of you folks know what a seabird is? So seabirds are basically birds that make their living from the ocean, and most folks are familiar with gulls. I mean, they're a very common seabird that you see around the coast. And then the species that we're working with on this island are terns, mainly common terns and roseate terns, and both of those are fairly rare. And the roseate tern is actually super rare. It's on the endangered species list, and it's listed as endangered. So we've been restoring this island since the late 1990s for terns. This island has a significant history of nesting terns. Back in the late 1800s, a lot of species were hunted to extinction, bird species, because their feathers were used in fashion. So you've probably seen some pictures of 1800s Victorian ladies with hats with all kinds of dead animals on them, including birds. And so seabirds, like terns, were used for decoration, and so they were hunted almost to extinction. And then various laws were enacted and the tern populations grew. So Penikese was actually one of the last places on the Atlantic coast where terns survived in large numbers after the plume trade. And then they subsequently declined because gulls began nesting in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they took over some of the nesting islands like Penikese, so terns were eliminated here in the 1950s. But we started restoring the island for them in the late 1990s, and now we've got almost 1,200 pairs of common and roseate terns here. So it's a big increase. We're really excited about it. What we're trying to do now, as George mentioned, is to make the habitat better for them. Right now they nest around the shoreline. It's very rocky and they're very exposed to the elements, to storm overwash and predators. So what we want to do is allow them to move into the upland like they used to. They used to nest all over the island. So we're trying to eliminate most of the shrubby vegetation from the island. We've been working on that for several years, and so now it looks very much like a grassland with scattered shrubs instead of a shrubland with some patches of grass. So hopefully over time, as we manage the habitat, the terns will move further in the inland and we'll be able to support more terns and they'll be more secure there. So our goal is really to make this the major tern nesting island in Buzzards Bay. Because it is so far from the mainland, it took you a while to get here. And seabirds like these remote islands because they're more secure from predators. You're not going to get as many mammalian predators like foxes or coyotes or skunks out here like you would in islands closer to the mainland. So that's our goal. Any questions?
Quiet group.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there any islands around here that have no predators at all?
Well, there are islands that have no predators for short periods of time, but eventually predators get on, and some of them are just transient. So there are islands close to the mainland where we manage terns as well, like Bird Island in Marion and Ram Island in Mattapoisett, and they're mostly predator-free, but we do occasionally get predators on.
Do they like swim over to the island?
Yep, they
Wow.
can swim. Of course, some of them can fly,
Oh, yeah.
but lots of times they don't stay.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, guys.
David, did you want to talk about the Agassiz School?
Sure. So, how many of you have ever seen the Marine Biological Laboratory in Woods Hole? What's on the roof? Anybody know what's on the roof of that building? A roof, yeah. Well, sitting on top of the actual roof are large cisterns of which salt water is pumped up to so that there can be a flow of salt water through the laboratory for live work. Well, that concept started right here with the old naturalist school, and at the top of the hill, I think we're going to have a chance to walk up, there are the old cisterns of which, when the Agassiz Naturalist School was here, they would pump up the water to the cisterns and bring them down to what was their laboratory, their science center at the time. And then when the center closed down, this island became a leper colony for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts under the Department of Public Health. And we have an opportunity, I think, to go and view the cemetery that's still here with the leper patients and the husband and wife team that were caretakers for those patients on the island. They're buried here on the island. And then after a period of time, it went into this sort of wild growth period of being a natural area. And then the school opened, the Penikese Island School, which was an alternative school out here on the island. And all of these works of development on the island were always controlled as a wraparound service. But now the department, the Commonwealth, manages it as a wildlife sanctuary, and the school has a lease or a memorandum of agreement to operate out here. And there's a lot of regulations about how they do that so that they can lessen the impacts on the natural wildlife that's out here and the terns that are breeding out here.
I drew two landscapes because, well, I drew that one right like there because two were kind of from higher up points because I like the way that on both of them, the shoreline curved along with the sand. It looked like almost like seas on both of them. It looked pretty cool. And then, the water's really clear today and stuff. So
once you get to Cuttyhunk, I'd say things start getting interesting. Just that Cuttyhunk is pretty interesting, and so is Penikese. They're both really different, I would say.
I chose to write about the one shorebird that I saw because I really wasn't expecting to see anything since there's not really many shorebirds out here right now. But I did end up seeing one when I was alone on the beach and everyone else had gone back, and I thought it was kind of cool that it was just me and the shorebird walking along the beach together since no one else had seen it. So I wrote about my isolated event with the shorebird and how I felt about that.
I would have loved to have had this opportunity as a student at Falmouth High School to come out with one of my either art classes or English classes. I hadn't actually come out to the island until I returned from college. Was the first time I came out to Penikese. But I think it's important as these young people are so plugged into technology today and learning technology to be able to get out into a wildlife sanctuary like this and to really take value of it, whether it's through writing, journaling, or through artwork, but to really be able to carry on the Aldo Leopold land ethic, and that's a lot of what today is for me, is not only the art and the English classes, but making sure that we expand that land ethic to the next generation. So a while back when I was learning about the project that Jane Baker is doing with the Falmouth Education Foundation and at the time the 300 Committee, she was talking about what's next, what can we do next? And so she was talking about wanting to come out to Penikese Island with the students and do a program out here and write another grant for FEF. And so she made some contacts with folks that we knew that were involved out here at Penikese, and we found out that there is a license agreement that caps the number of people that can actually be on the island at one time. And the number of students she had in the program were going to exceed that license requirement. And so we were able to reach out to Commissioner Peterson at the Department of Fish and Game and work with his staff and Jason Zimmer from the Southeast District Office to learn about what the project was that the students were going to do, what the impacts would be here on the island. And they were very accommodating to get the types of waivers that we needed to be able to make this day possible. So, so excited that Falmouth Education Foundation funded this project, and very thankful to the Department of Fish and Game, Commissioner Peterson, and Jason Zimmer from the Southeast Office for giving us the waiver so we could be out here today.
Well, it's all about getting them out of the classroom and into the natural environment and being able to see these beautiful vistas, but also to be able to see individual species such as the roseate tern and the common tern, which are threatened or endangered. So they're actually out here and probably seeing some wildlife that most people will never get a chance to see. So you hope that through this interaction on such a beautiful place like Penikese Island, they will start to get an interest in that and maybe further their careers to be a wildlife biologist or an ornithologist, to be able to come out and do the actual field work when they get out of college. So it's about getting them out, understanding that it's not all about on that little screen on the handheld. It's real, it's here, and it's vibrant, and they can be a part of it.
Kids are going to be making a lot of artworks and writings from this, and then they'll be having a number of art shows, and the FEF is also sponsoring. They're going to be entering this work in a competition down Cape, and so part of the grant will pay for us to go down Cape and see the work in the competition. And the Falmouth Education Foundation is so great that they give us money to come up with these ideas, to bring the kids places, to make high school interesting, but also fun. I mean, it is fun to be on an island for the day, and you can't deny that.
Yeah.